Hey everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com. I'm going to show you how to make this very simple card. This actually uses some designer series paper from the Nature's Poem designer series paper pack. I actually was making this for a class and I was trying to think of something simple to do because I had several other complicated cards, which I will be sharing with you very soon as well. And so what I did was I picked out a piece of DSP and then I just went with the colors that were on it. So these are the two versions that I have. We're going to make another one today. This also uses the leaves trinkets. As you can see, I've used most of mine, but it does have copper and silver leaves, so you get a bunch of these. Actually, I've used these for 2 different parties with a large amount of people, and I still have a few left, so that's pretty good considering. What we're going to be using is the Rooted in Nature stamp set, and I do have a bit of sad news. I was never able to find this little leaf here, so I think I threw it away. I'm so bummed. So note to self, make sure you clean up after you make a card, unlike me, because I just did that the complete goofy way. So you can make this card either way. You could make it in a hamburger, and what this would be is 5.5 by 8.5, and you're going to score it at 4 1/4, or you could do 4 1/4 by 11 and score it 5.5. So I'm going to just use this one today just to make it simple. I do have a piece of the designer series paper. Again, you could use the other side if you wanted to make something different, but this measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then we also have 2 pieces of paper here. I have a piece of Whisper White, which measures 3 by 4, and I have a piece of Blackberry Bliss, which measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So we're going to layer those together and put them onto the front. One thing you want to keep in mind, if you're going to do the card a long ways, you're going to cover it this way, but if sometimes I know I have done this before where I'll actually turn this card sideways. If you do this that way, it's going to take up too much of the card, so you're going to want to trim down your card this direction and probably cut it off by maybe about 2 inches. So you could certainly lay it that way, but do be mindful to stamp it in the correct direction if you're going to do it the other way. And what I'm going to do is I have one last piece of this together. So this is a piece of Grapefruit Grove, a piece of DSP, a piece of Blackberry Bliss, and a piece of Whisper White, and I have one of these left. So at the end, leave a comment. I will tell you I'm not going to draw this winner until I get back from my trip, so this won't be drawn until mid-November, but if you leave a comment, I will draw someone to win this kit. I can't stamp it, but you can make this if you have the Rooted in Nature stamp set, or if you want, you could make it into something else. So make sure you leave a comment, and I'll enter you to win that. So what we're going to do very simply is we're going to stamp. That's the beginning part. So I have my Thinking of You, and you could certainly switch out to a different sentiment if you like, but I like this one. I thought it was really nice. And then since I couldn't find my one missing stamp set, I'm going to pop in a different leaf here. And then I'm also going to use the, I believe these are aspen leaves. So I'm going to use the large and the small leaf. You could also bring in this little branch if you wanted to instead, or bring in the pine leaves. Just kind of depends what you want to do. So we're going to actually stamp our sentiment first, because I did it the other way before and I found that it covered it up too much. I really just wasn't pleased with how it turned out. So we're going to stamp the Thinking of You in Blackberry Bliss. Now, the funny thing is when we did this at club the other day, I'm going to put this down just so it's even. It was actually so dark. This ink is so dark, it kind of looked brown for a second, but then once it dried, it did lighten up a little bit. So I'm going to stamp this in the center. Okay, so that's the Thinking of You. And then I'm going to grab my Grapefruit Grove. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just stamp all these other little images just very lightly. So I'm just going to do one at a time. I'm going to start with that little leaf. I'm not sure what it is. Kind of looks like a ginkgo biloba, but I'm not sure if those are anywhere near me. And I am going to stamp more than once. So I'm going to stamp and then stamp again without re-inking. I'm going to do the same thing with the large leaf. I actually need a different block. I'm going to do this with the large leaf as well. If you notice, that has a little bit of a shimmer to it. We were using a we were using some of the shimmer paints, and I don't know if I cross-contaminated my stamp pad or what, but That's okay, we'll clean that off. So I have that one as well. And then I'm gonna just add the little leaf in here, just a few of those. Just to kind of fill in space. Doesn't have to be specific. They can all be overlapping. Looks very nice like that. All right, and then all we have to do now is put this card together. This is a very simple card to assemble. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to flip this over so I don't mess it up. I have definitely been using a lot lately because I have had a few errors on things where I've been really sad. I've been using my Tombow liquid glue much more because it gives you the opportunity to move your card if you haven't put it on correctly. And I made a bunch of cards last evening. I kind of cut out the beginning parts of them, and I was putting them all crooked on the paper. I was so sad. So I've been sticking with the Tombow liquid glue just to try to avoid that. Now we also have our other piece here, but before we put this on, I want to show you what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my copper metallic thread, and I'm actually going to wrap it around this. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use a little bit of snail for this just to hold it in place. I'm just going to put just a little piece here in the center. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my copper thread and I'm going to just wrap this around. And I actually did it a lot because I thought it looked kind of neat with all of the layers. So I probably did it, oh goodness gracious, sorry. I probably did this about a good 6 or 8 times. Let me give that a good press so it'll stay still. And then unwinding also helps. So I'm going to wrap it around probably about 4 or 5 times. So make sure that I don't pull it too tight that I'm bending the paper. And I'm going to go around one more time. And let's press this flat. I'm going to put this down right here, and then I'm going to just grab my snips and trim that off. Okay, so it wrapped around really nicely. You can kind of gather it together if you want. It's up to you. And then the other thing that I did, I seem to have lost my little piece of tape. Just as a tip, what I usually do is if you have a piece of Scotch tape that come with this, I just retape it back down so it keeps it together and a little bit neater. But I don't know, I must have left that at the last party, so I did forget that. But one other thing that I did, and I want to show you this before I do it. You can kind of gather these together if you'd like. It just kind of depends what you want to do. So for my, where did I put them? My little trinkets. Here they are. For my trinkets, what I actually ended up doing, and I'm going to use my last copper one because I just ordered some new ones. I put a glue dot actually onto the back of this, kind of by the stem there, if you can see that. I'm actually going to put 2. And what I did was I kind of pressed them together to kind of wad them up by the stem. And then the other thing I did was I took a very tiny, and you can either trim a piece off, you could cut one in half, but I just took a little piece of the mini Stampin' Dimensionals, and I put this on the back. Kind of tried to hide it in the stem, but what I found is, oh, I put this on the wrong side. What I found is, let me move that over. Because there is some white in this paper, it's kind of easy to hide this so you don't really see that dimensional, but it kind of just gives it one more little spot to hold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of gather this together, and I'm going to put this up here at the top. That way you can't see the white. So I'm going to gather it and kind of pop that on there. It doesn't have to be tightly gathered, quite honestly. So if it moves over a little bit, it's okay. It just depends on what you like. But if you want to bring them kind of together so it just has like a focal point, that works out pretty nicely too. Now, one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just score this because I hadn't done that before. Just burnish that with my bone folder. And I'm going to grab my Tombow once again. And I do want to make sure. Now, I normally would flip this over and do it, but since I already put that embellishment on, which you could wait and do that afterwards. You do want to make sure that you definitely get a lot of adhesive so it actually holds it down though. So what I find that I do is I'll put this down and kind of scoot it around a little bit just to make sure it gets to the edges, and then press. And then that really will hold down the edges of your card. So this one here, I didn't put enough at the top. So what you could do is if you find that that happens, you could just get out your liquid glue and just put a little dot there. Press it down just like so, and then just set your block on it, or you could set a punch if you have one. Just set it on it. What it'll do is it'll help to press that to hold it down a little bit. Usually a punch will hold a little bit better just because it has a little bit more weight to it. But so this is nicely on there, and then all I'm going to do is you could pop this up with dimensionals if you like. Also, the other thing you could do too is you could slide this so it's underneath if you wanted to, so you could just lift this up ever so gently. And then you could put this so this part's underneath of it if you wanted to. Since these are just a glue dot and a dimensional, they will let go a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of Tombow here. And if not, you could certainly center it to the left-hand side. Just kind of depends on what you want to do. I'm going to just slide this under just a little bit. And then back over to the side. Move this over so I can make sure this is straight. A little crooked there. See, so the nice thing about that Tombow is it does give you the ability to be able to move them if you need to. And I'm going to just lift this just so these are right over top. And then same thing again. So I have my glue dot and my dimensional there. So I'm going to kind of just look for a piece that's white to just hide that dimensional that I put on the back. And there you go. Really, really simple. So you could add a lovely sentiment on the inside. You could kind of keep this for like a thinking of you card or even a birthday card. But there you go. There are 3 different versions. These are going different directions. And then this one uses the silver instead. I will put all the measurements on my blog. You can find this at rachthestamper.com. I'll have all the measurements. So if you want to make this card as well. Also, you can shop all the products there. I'll put all the products listed. And all you have to do is click on the picture if you'd like to get them. Again, don't forget to leave a comment and you'll be entered to win all of the goodies to make this really cool card kit. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great day.